You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
We're joined by a special guest today, a guest who hopefully is going to take us on a nostalgia-filled trip down memory lane. Andy Dale, welcome along. Good to have you here.
Good to meet you. Good to be on, thanks.
What we're going to do, we're going to cut straight to the chase, Andy. And you're the man. I'm sure people will have noticed this because I know there's been a good publicity campaign building in recent months. You're the man behind Just 14, which is already a book, and we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we're going to turn that into a film. Talk us through the kind of thought process that made you want to kind of commit your memories to a kind of piece of art in the first place then.
I wrote another book first, which was based on my time at college. Now, I've been a Villa fan all my life, so a lot of that book mentioned the Villa as well. And then I decided on a prequel, going back to that glory season, the 80-81, and it's called Just 14 because obviously 14 players were used, and the character who's quite based on me turned 14, actually sort of April 1981.
How much of it is kind of autobiographical versus how much of it is artistic license there?
The book is probably 90% true. The film is going to be different. We're taking the best bits out, but also making more of a story out of it. Early 80s, living with it and trying to survive it. But the backdrop is following the Villa, and there's a lovely ending, as you all know.
In terms of converting the original book into a screenplay, then, if you like, has that all been your work, or have you worked with somebody to adapt
that?
No,
we've employed two script writers. We gave them the rules, 90 minutes for the film. Some of the characters had to disappear, and a lot of the football games, unfortunately, we don't see all of them. We only see sort of a few.
And how much of that was a kind of, I don't know, a leap of faith and you putting trust in people like to look after your baby, if you like?
I'm a bit of a control freak. I've had quite a lot of say. We're on version 9 at the moment.
I like the way you say at the moment.
Yeah. It's getting better and better, though. It's getting funnier as well. The script I saw last night, I think is really, really good.
How much did you want it to be a Villa book, and how much did you want it to be this kind of coming of age, rites of passage? You know, is this? I suppose it's a long-winded question, Andy, but this is a story that should appeal to people, not just people with claret and blue blood.
Totally. I want to be the Villa fever pitch. Yeah. I mean, I still love watching the fever pitch Arsenal film, and you still get a buzz when Michael Thomas scores that goal, even though you've got no allegiance with Arsenal. Yeah. So I'd hope for fans who aren't the claret and blue ones would still feel yes when it happens at the end, because they know the emotion of being a football fan, the highs and the lows.
What was it like as a teenager in the early 80s? Because I didn't really experience my teenage years till the early 90s.
It wasn't easy. I mean, it was quite a time of a lot of riots. There were the Brixton riots, the Handsworth ones. Football, going to the games was scary. I'm stuck a bit in the 80s. I love the music. All my films come from the 80s. But if you look at it, it wasn't that amazing. There was certainly a dark side to it.
It's really interesting because it was like the 80s was this kind of, not necessarily the whole decade, but a lot of the decade was a time of kind of social economic struggle. I'm not trying to force the narrative too much here, but was the fact that Villa had this glorious spell, was that the best kind of form of escapism for Villa fans back then?
I think it probably was. My favourite year of all time is still 81. And that's probably because of the Villa in the league. There's a lot of truth in it because the birthday of Jonathan is my birthday, which is actually tomorrow. Interesting point there. But in 1981, the 4th of April, Bucks Fizz won the Eurovision Song Contest. Aldeniti won the Grand National, and they had the boat race as well. And the Villa went top of the league, beating Leicester 4-2, and we stayed top after that.
Away from football for a minute then.
Yeah.
Probably tells you where my mind goes, but I think the 80s, and I think Soda Streams, VHS and Betamax video recorders, bands like New Order and Depeche Mode, and you know, is this a celebration of all of that?
A celebration, especially of the Birmingham area as well. So a bit of early Duran Duran, they're all getting in there, and UB40, and even Dexys, Midnight Runners. But it's also as well, I mean, a lot of the football still comes in with the Subbuteo, the Roy the Rovers, the Shoot, league ladders, all those kind of things, the pink papers. That's what it was all about.
Because I grew up as an Aston Villa fan, probably was introduced to the idea of Aston Villa properly at the time when you were going through your college years. So it was kind of a bleak introduction. Obviously we had the great glorious success in the early 80s, and then the mid 80s became the fall from grace, and then the late 80s saw us get back.
Really change, yeah.
So without too many spoilers, what's your favourite non-football part of the book and the experience?
Probably some of the shootings, because John Lennon gets shot, and that's quite a big sort of emotional thing at school. And then we've got sort of the who shot JR, so the Dallas happens as well. I think probably, like I say, going back to that 4th of April with the book fairs.
Do the characters in the story try to kind of capture that informs, so what's happening on the world stage and on the UK stage, that kind of informs their conversations and the plot along the way?
Yes, it gets mentioned a lot, but also in the background you'll see a lot of things as well.
So when did you write the book, Andy? How long's the book been available?
2015 actually wrote it.
And was it always with the intention of seeing if you could get it onto the kind of...
No, I was approached 3 years ago by one of the readers who thought we'd make a good series on Netflix, and then we spoke with the director and we felt maybe it is just one season. We don't want lots of seasons.
Yeah,
it is just that August to May 80 to 81, because obviously sort of football fans don't live in years, live in seasons, don't they? That's how it works.
As a 13, 14-year-old then, how would you have consumed football then? Would you have had shoot posters of Gary Shaw on the wall and that kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, I did, and also I had the Royal Rovers performance chart, which I kept for the whole season, filling in every week, and I've still got that.
What's that? That one's new to me then. What's that?
You just fill in all the fixtures, all the results, all the goal scorers. You have a little graph of your league position, and then you have at the end a little comment on the season, and I put promising.
That's brilliant. So talk to me a little bit about the team that, I mean, it's widely regarded as the greatest team in Aston Villa's history. Certainly the achievements that they did over those couple of seasons in the early 80s, as much as we yearn for it, we don't think they're going to be repeated anytime soon. So what did you like, other than the fact that they were winning more often than not, and that there was only 14 of them, they were a tight bunch? What did you love about that team?
I mean, about the season in general was Midland derbies, because there were sort of 8 Midland teams in the first division as it was then. So we played 14 derbies and didn't lose a single one. But I mean, the players, it picked the team each week. You knew who was going to play. You only had the one sub. It was either Eamon Deasy or David Geddes. So everyone was playing defensive, maybe going away. He put defender Eamon Deasy on the bench. At home, just in case wasn't going quite right, it'd be David Geddes. But I mean, I've met so many of these players now, and they're such great people, really. They're so down to earth. It's so different to players these days because they are approachable and we know them. Now you've got sort of maybe 16 players in a half. Knowing all those names in 20 years' time, you won't, will you? Even if they win the league, you probably wouldn't know half the squad in 20 years' time.
Do you think that almost kind of everyman quality of that team, full of honest players without airs and graces particularly, do you think that was part of the secret to Villa's success back then?
I think there were no major stars. I know Peter Wiff came in for 500,000, but he wasn't Andy Gray, who they'd sold for $1.5 million. And I think the decision Ron made to sort of lose some of the more star players and put together a team that they were very similar, all the players, they just worked together. It was 110%, he kept mentioning all the time. Yeah. Your Des Bremners are just so important. I mean, my favourite's always been Sid. Gordon Cowns is my ultimate player, and I think he's so underrated by a lot of the media over the years. But even that season, he wasn't his brilliant best. He was just solid and consistent. They all gave 7 or 8 every week.
And I think that, it's probably an obvious thing to say, but the word team, that's the word. It wasn't based on individuals. It was based on a collection of players with a shared vision, actually delivering more often than not.
Totally.
How proud and honoured are you now to kind of call many of them your friends and to be able to interact with them?
It is surreal. It really is. I mean, Kenny Swain, he's messaged me 4 times this week. He's just such a lovely gentleman. We've made him ambassador for the actual project now. One of our 14 ambassadors. All the rest aren't players, but Kenny's the only one who was part of that.
Do you have to kind of pinch yourself sometimes when you think all the numbers that you've got in your contact book now with who are your actual heroes?
I do, certainly. And still when I meet Sid, it's different though. I still feel totally in awe.
Still get starstruck all these years on?
I do, completely.
I know you're going to be kind enough for us to put the trailer in as part of this podcast and part of this video. What's it been like? So I presume this is a departure from anything you've ever done before, trying to get a film made and to kind of crowdfund this film. So tell us a little bit about the experience of that so far.
Yeah, I'm an IT consultant. This is so far out of my comfort zone, you wouldn't believe. And I just can't believe how fast it's all gone, really. We've got so many people involved, so many great Villa fans. When we're doing the trailer, the number of extras just came along several times, travelling quite a distance, and they've all become friends as well. We've got a lot of the celebrity Villa fans all ready to be in the film. All of the players still alive. I think, 12 of them so far have agreed to cameos in the film. We've already in the trailer got Tony Morley as a gardener, Gary Shaw as a teacher, which is totally surreal because my old school closed down about 7 years ago and the building is still there, not being used. So we filmed in my old school. Brilliant. With Gary Shaw as the teacher.
What school's that, out of interest?
Sneed Comprehensive. It's in Bloxwich. So where we're at though is still down to funding. The crowdfund to start with paid for the trailer, 20,000. We now need to move to the final production and start filming, and that's where the challenge really is still happening. But I am going with my director, Steve Brewster, to Cannes to try and sort of find people who'll be interested in taking the film a bit further as well. That's quite a way out thing to do.
Of the ones who took part in the trailer, of the former players of your heroes who you've managed to kind of rope into this project, who do you think's the most natural actor?
Well, Gary would say him. I think the one who was brilliant was Des Bremner. Des Bremner played a steward, actually sort of a modern day version, because what we're doing is the very start of the trailer, there's a wedding, and the person who was the 14-year-old is now a granddad, and his granddaughter is a bridesmaid at the wedding, and it's Saturday, and suddenly it's time to run out to the wedding in a bridesmaid dress with him following and actually go to Villa Park. And the reason I did this is quite weird. I've been married twice, but the first one was back in 2003. I actually left with my bride to go to the Villa play Leicester, and girl scored 2. And actually she goes there at the very start in her wedding dress. We're 5 minutes late, and the Trinity just applauded me as I bring my bride in on the wedding day. So I just thought it'd be a nice thing to try and do in the film. And obviously because the age didn't quite work, we decided to make it a bridesmaid who could be his granddaughter, who maybe is just approaching 14 now. That's
brilliant. I'm actually lucky enough to see the trailer. You invited me to the event in Stourbridge at the back. It
was a great event though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great kind of mingling with all the people there, and it was great to see this trailer, because, and I hope this doesn't sound dismissive or anything, but the quality and, you know, even some of the faces that you recognise, I'm not sure whether those are the actors who will get the gig eventually, but some of the faces in the trailer, you thought, actually, Andy and the team mean business here. This is not a half-baked idea. This is going to be, if they can get this off the ground, this is going to be fantastic.
Well, we used, Stourbridge company called Mockingbird, our production company. We're very much going to be local. Everything we do, we'll try and employ people from the Birmingham area and around the West Midlands. A big thing from the film as well is the West Midlands football. The Albion, the big run, came third that season. I'm from a family of Wolves fans. Wolves won the League Cup in 1980. So the actual deal we made sure we had Wolves players and Albion players also from that time.
So what can us as Villa fans do then? Obviously we're going to promote this and put it across our channels so people can, you know, the people who have escaped it so far, hopefully we'll be able to get it kind of front and centre in front of them.
Certainly visit the website, which is just14themovie.com, the number 14, so just 14themovie.com. Watch the trailer, and there's also on there a link to the crowdfund as well. The more we can raise ourselves, the less we have to go and find. And I think enough Villa fans are interested. A little bit from a few of them takes a long way.
Have you allowed yourself to kind of dream, Andy, in terms of, you know, you've been there with your tuxedo on at the premiere?
Yeah, totally. My wife's dreaming a lot further than that. We've already retired on the money.
Why can't Birmingham and the
So
Midlands have our own fever pitch? You know, we've got enough drama and enough characters. So
Yep, we need it.
I'm Matt Kendrick. You've been listening to and watching the latest episode of Claret and Blue with Andy Dale. Go and check it out. Check out Just 14. It's a brilliant story. It's a story that, well, I think it will strike a chord with all of us who love the Villa anyway, but it'll also strike a chord with those of us who kind of grew up, you know, in the 80s and 90s and had to live our adolescence with Aston Villa kind of helping us or hindering us in the background. And even people of generations younger than us, Andy, to have a little kind of trip down memory lane.
Certainly, yes.
Some of the brilliant times and from back then. So, yeah, until next time, up the Villa.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your thoughts and comments. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.